Hi everybody, I hope everyone's doing okay out there. You'll notice I don't have my Fighting Irish baseball hat on today, which is indicative of a little bit of a better day. I am wearing my Fighting Irish sweatshirt, which is also part of my withdrawal uniform that I've referred to in the past. So I'm still struggling a little bit, but definitely a little bit out of the woods today. And I thought I'd come on and talk about specifically anxiety in benzo withdrawal. And so whether anxiety was what led you to taking the benzodiazepine, or anxiety is now something you have as a result of taking the benzo, which is true for some, or it has come as a result of trying to come off. If this is something you're grappling with, then maybe we can, hopefully we can have this conversation, or I guess it's a one-sided conversation. Sorry, I don't get to hear unless you comment, and I really want to hear your comments, but I guess my monologue on it, and it's an important piece because I think there's a lot of discerning views on what amount of agency do we actually have in this process. Like, we've talked about this before in another post, but what do we actually have control over, and what do we not have control over? And so, my anxiety began in terms of the severity of it and becoming debilitated by my symptoms as a result of trying to come off the benzo. It started while I was on it, but it became significantly worse as I was trying to come off. But to me, I've gotten to a point where it kind of doesn't matter what got the ball rolling. It got the ball rolling, and I'm left with these anxious symptoms that I have to contend with. And when I talk about anxiety, and we throw that word around a lot, but really I use it as an umbrella term to think about all kinds of things, from intrusive thoughts to panic attacks, looping thoughts, repetitive thoughts, fear, terror, DPDR fits underneath there. There's a whole lot of symptoms that fall under the anxiety umbrella. So when I say anxiety, I'm not just talking about intrusive thoughts, or I'm not just talking about DPDR. I'm talking about night terrors. I'm talking about day terrors, panic attacks, all of our avoidance behaviors that we get into to avoid, being in an anxious state. So one of the conversations I've had with a lot of people over the last 2 years has been kind of not a debate, but a lot of difference of opinions about whether certain therapeutic approaches work while we're in benzo withdrawal, or is it just time? And I think what I've come up with for me, I want to qualify again, not to be annoying, but just that this is not a clinical opinion. This is not me being a therapist. This is me figuring my way through this, is I had to come to terms with the fact that I wanted to do two things. I wanted to have some agency in terms of what I was in control of and what I wasn't in control of. I am not in control of the fact that I have certain thoughts, a lot of body sensations that are really uncomfortable, whether that's skin burning or adrenaline surges, headaches, tight band around my head, tinnitus. I kind of go on and on. I don't want to bore you with all of my physical sensations, and certainly all the mental sensations and mental struggles emotional struggles that have come with this, whether it's feeling incredibly depressed, because I think I'm mostly depressed because I'm depleted from having been fighting this anxious state that I have found myself in. And so anyway, the conversation with people along the way has been, does therapy help, or do therapeutic approaches help, since we're basically in this neurochemical shitstorm that's driving all this? And what I've come up with, what I've concluded is yes, depending on the approach. And I keep coming back to these two, but I just want to share my experience. And again, it's my personal experience. It may not be helpful for you, but has certainly proven to already be helpful and useful for me. And I talk about Claire Weeks, and I talk about the DARE program. Claire Weeks is not a program. She was a doctor who wrote about nervous suffering back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. Her books are still widely read and used. And my very first post on YouTube was breaking down the trajectory of nervous suffering according to Claire Weeks. And I'm going to actually do a series, because I've had a lot of people ask me on each one of those steps in the trajectory and get deeper into it as it relates to benzo withdrawal. But I go to Claire Weeks because she was giving us a formula to deal with this suffering that we're in, basically, this anxious suffering that we're in. And so I can't stop the sensations. I can't stop the thoughts. They are now driven, I think, by a true sensitization of my nervous system that I believe was caused and induced by a benzo withdrawal. But her approach is useful, and when I say it's effective, it's not effective in getting rid of the thoughts. It's not effective in getting rid of the sensations. But that wasn't even her goal. And I'll come back to that in a second. But now we go to DARE. So DARE is the more contemporary program. You can look it up. It's a book by Barry McDonough. They have groups you can join. They have YouTube videos you can watch. And to me, it takes kind of the framework that Claire Weeks introduced decades ago and builds on it in a very contemporary, here and now kind of way. Looking at contemporary issues around anxiety, there's posts they make about COVID and things that are happening in our lives. Again, neither one of these approaches were designed for people going through medication discontinuation or benzo withdrawal, but they were designed for people with anxiety. Claire Weeks called it nervous suffering. DARE calls it anxiety. And again, anxiety being that umbrella term for a whole host of different types of symptoms. And the reason why I have found this helpful is, again, I've been told by a couple people, no, don't, there's really nothing you can do about this, it's just time. I think that's true in the sense that I can't make the sensitization heal any faster than it's going to heal. So I can work at, when my intrusive thoughts come up, I can work at diffusing them. Diffusing them, again, is that instead of pushing that beach ball into the water and getting hit in the face, I let go of the beach ball and I just I allow it to be in the pool with me. What I've learned, though, and what I did wrong was, that metaphor, which Barry McDonough, actually, that's his metaphor, not mine, is the pool has to be big enough. So, for example, if I'm in a bathtub and I push that ball under and it pops me in the face, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to accept and allow this thought, and I'm going to stop suppressing it and just let it float. Well, if I'm in a bathtub, it's only going to float, about an inch away from me, and how am I going to get away from this beach ball? So it's still going to be on me. So whether it's a thought, whether it's DPDR, whether it's something you're afraid of, whether it's a physical sensation of some sort, a feeling you're having, if you let go of the beach ball but you're in a bathtub, it's still right there on you. You can't really get away from it. You're still staring at the beach ball. So what I had to kind of recognize is, okay, I've got to be in a bigger pool. I've got to, be in a lake. Well, how do I do that? And so what I've had to start practicing is, how do I make my pool bigger? Because the beach ball's not going away. The thought's not going to go away. The palpitations aren't going to go away. The tinnitus isn't going to go away. None of those things are probably going to go away until my sensitization decreases, and that may be time. I cannot make the sensitization worse by adding fear to fear. Oh my God, the thought's back. Oh my God, the palpitation's back, okay? And so what Claire Weeks and DARE, and there's other people, but I'm going to stick with these two, because I'm finding them to be right now for me the most relevant and the most helpful in dealing with this, is recognizing, okay, I'm going to work to not make this worse. I don't know that I can speed up my healing. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can't. But again, I can work to not make it worse in the process. I can work a set of skills to where maybe I don't come out of this with anxiety, because I've spent a year or 3 years or 5 years, so bared down and gripping on this and ruminating and doing all of these things. And so we have this, I do think we have a disadvantage, right? Because we've got this extra chemical push that's going on for many of us. So I don't want to discount that. But I do want to say that, if you can think about, I'm going to take my heart palpitations, I'm going to take my nerve pain, I'm going to take my insomnia, I'm going to take my intrusive thoughts, my tinnitus, my DPDR, my foggy brain, my foggy head, my headache, whatever it is, and I'm going to stop fighting it. I'm going to stop waking up and being like, oh God, I can't do this one more day. Oh my God, when is this going to stop? Oh my God, will I ever heal? Oh my, all of these oh my gods and oh no's that we do. And we let it go. But then we got to make sure we're not in a bathtub. We got to make sure we're in a big giant pool. And so for me, I was doing this, but I wasn't noticing much progress. And then I realized I think my pool's too small. If basically I'm on my bed and I'm gripping down, oh no, oh no, no, and then I say, okay, practice letting it go. And I practice letting the beach ball go, but I'm still on my bed and I'm not willing to go into the kitchen or the backyard or walk down the street or try to go to a store or try to engage with somebody. Then I'm in a bathtub with my beach ball. So what I had to start doing was practicing going to like the hardware store or driving into town to see my family, driving in general, going to the gym, starting to swim again, doing different things. And what I noticed is that as my pool got a little bigger, as my world got a little bigger, the beach ball was still there. I still had the thoughts. I still had the weird, funny body sensations. Not funny, haha, funny like, what the hell is this? I still had everything, but there were a lot of other pool toys in the pool along with me. So the thought was there, but it wasn't so right on top of me. It was kind of over here, but I also saw a floaty, and I saw this, funky other pool toy, and I saw this, noodle, and I could see other things. And suddenly, because other things came into my view, the beach ball was just one of a few. So from my perspective, there are things we can do in this. And the reason I also stay with Claire Weeks and with Dare is because their goal in this is not to get rid of the thought. That's the whole point of their approach. And that's where I think we get stuck in benzo withdrawal and think nothing's going to work because it's not going to go away until time heals us. The goal isn't to necessarily make it go away. The goal is to change our relationship to the symptom. And I think that is something that we have some agency over, is changing our relationship to our symptoms, whatever they are. Physical manifestations, mental manifestations, emotional manifestations. We can change our relationship to them through practice. And so, check out those two approaches. I'm certainly not, an endorser for them or anything like that. They just happen to be what has started to take root and help me expand my pool so that my beach balls, my symptoms that I'm working hard to just let be near me, are not, the only thing I'm thinking about 24/7, the only thing I'm focusing on 24/7. And it's really hard to do this, right? I've spent my life being a problem solver, and it would be a lot easier. I just heard somebody say a couple of hours ago, it'd be much easier to just do the hard work than it is to be vulnerable, right? Like if somebody could give me a manual and tell me exactly what to do, I would do it 10 times over. I'd be the top person in the class, rather than I have to be vulnerable to this process that's unknown, that's out of my control to a certain, mostly to my extent, but I do have some agency. I have agency in terms of the relationship I have with these symptoms. And the more that I can begin to think about that and maybe implement some strategies to help me change my relationship with my symptoms, then I think I'm going to, whatever time frame I'm in withdrawal, whether it's a year, 3 years, or 5 years, or 6 months, or a month, I'm gonna hopefully not suffer quite as much during that time, as I'm not in so much fight and resistance of those symptoms. I hope this was helpful. I'm sure I have much more to say about this. It's late, but I wanted to just post something about it. And I'd love to hear any questions or comments you guys have. You can check me out on my Instagram with the same name, or you can, there's a way to private message me there, or you can publicly make a comment down below. And I hope everyone who's out there is doing okay and having a non-Notre Dame baseball hat kind of day. Take care.